This Wednesday evening at Kigali Marriott Hotel, First Lady Jeannette Kagame joined young people at Kwibuka28 conversation named Ku Gicaniro to commemorate the genocide against the Tutsi, learn its history and discuss how to rebuild a better country. The conversation themed the role of youth in fighting against genocide and building Rwanda we want, was organized by Peace and Love Proclaimers PLP and urges trust in collaboration with the Imbuto Foundation. The event brought together over 450 participants, both those living in Rwanda and abroad. During her remarks, First Lady Jeannette Kagame urged young Rwandans to be pioneers of peace and forgiveness. Now, joining me in the studio this very evening is the PLP Executive Director Nasul Shema, who is here to tell us about today's event. PLP, if I may tell you, is an organization founded by Rwandan youth seeking to inspire peers and teach them the principle of hope, unity, and social responsibility. They are also the founders of what we've seen for so many years, the Walk to Remember, especially during this time as we commemorate the genocide against the Tutsi. Thank you so much, Nasul, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure and a privilege.
All right. If you could tell us very briefly, what is the history of Ku Gicaniro? What do we know, should we know about this conversation?
Yes, Ku Gicaniro is a PLP event that was initiated in 2017, and this was years after we've had successfully organized the Walk to Remember, and we sat down and said, it's time now to have conversation around these certain topics. So we went back into the culture and we found Ku Gicaniro, which used to be a place where young and old would gather around to discuss issues that are happening in the family, good and bad, and find ways to find solutions. So Ku Gicaniro for us is a place where we come around as young people to discuss the causes and consequences of genocide, highlighting the important role of young people in making sure that such atrocities do not happen in Rwanda or elsewhere.
So Ku Gicaniro, I understand it started in 2017, is that right?
Yes, yes.
If you could tell us, what kind of role should the young people play in fighting against genocide and building the Rwanda that we want?
For me, I think the first and foremost role is education. For us to be able to fight genocide denial and genocide ideology, we need to first educate ourselves on the matters on the 1994 genocide against Tutsi. And by educating ourselves, we'll be able to have the content that is needed to fight genocide denial. We also need to understand that as much as genocide denial is the last step, it could also be the first step to genocide. So if we are distracted, if we think that genocide denial should be fought by other people, we are wrong. So we need to fight it with every means that we got.
In your view, to what extent do the young Rwandans understand their role in building a better future for themselves and for generations to come?
I think we are now at a good extent, but it is not where we would want to be.
Yeah.
The young people of today now understand that if we do not remember, we're doomed to repeat it. But then it remains a problem because they most often associate genocide denial with politics. They think that if you are there fighting genocide denial on social media, you are playing politics. So we need to kind of like shift that mindset. We need to understand that each and everything concerned about genocide ideology, genocide denial is our fight, and then we need to go together in this fight.
Very lastly, in the context of Rwanda's history, a very dark and actually a very painful history, what does forgiveness and unity mean to you as a young leader?
Forgiveness for me is forgiveness and the ability to let go for me are such an important ability, because often we need to learn to accept apologies that we've never received. And sometimes when you do not forgive, sometimes there is something that keep nudging on your heart, you know. So forgiveness is actually showing the person who have wronged you that you still have your humanness inside you. You still have the heart, and sometimes when you don't forgive them, you're giving them what actually they need. And so to make sure that you are a better person than them, it is always best to forgive. It is not an easy journey.
Yeah.
That's why we need to kind of like make sure that we all go into this together and move forward as a nation.
And be united as a nation.
Be united as a nation, of course.
Mr. Naswil Shema, the Executive Director of PLP, Peace and Love Proclaimers. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure and a privilege.